Okay, so picture this. You finally have the keys to your own place. The world is your oyster. Every wall is a blank canvas. Every room is full of potential. You walk through your new empty house with this intoxicating sense of power. After conquering the absolute Hunger Games that is the housing market, you feel invincible. You think to yourself, I did that. I'm a homeowner. Now let's make this place ours. We were high on that new homeowner feeling. We'd spend our evenings walking through the rooms, pointing at things and saying, oh, we can totally fix that. We binged so many hours of home renovation shows, I think my brain was starting to restructure itself in shiplap. We had Chip and Joanna in our heads, whispering sweet nothings about knocking down walls and installing farmhouse sinks. We had the YouTube University degree in DIY. We were ready. We were inspired. We were, looking back now, completely delusional. The plan was simple. Tackle a few easy projects to get our feet wet before moving on to the big stuff. Build some confidence. A little paint here, a new light fixture there. What could possibly go wrong? Spoiler alert, everything. Everything could and absolutely did go wrong. This isn't a story about a beautiful home transformation. This is a story about ambition, gravity, and the shocking discovery that we have absolutely no idea what we're doing. This is our highlight reel of Renovation Bloopers. Bloopers, Act III, the painting catastrophe. Our first target was the guest room. It was painted the sad beige color that just screamed, I have given up on life. We decided to go bold. We went to the store and picked out this gorgeous, deep, moody green. On the little paint swatch, it looked sophisticated. It looked like a room where you'd read classic novels and sip expensive whiskey. We bought all the gear, rollers, brushes, trays, drop cloths. We were so official. We blasted a motivational playlist and got to work. Now, here's lesson number 1 in DIY. The 5 minutes you save by not putting down painter's tape properly will cost you 5 hours of cleanup. We were so eager to get the color on the walls, we did a rush job on the prep. The result? The ceiling now has a lovely, uneven green border. The white trim looks like it was painted by a toddler with a gem-toned crayon, but the real masterpiece was the floor. Despite the drop cloth, which seemed to have a mind of its own, we ended up with little green splatters everywhere. Our socks were green, my hair had a green streak. It was a mess. But wait, it gets better. Once the first coat dried, we realized the color was not what we expected. Under the weird lighting of the empty room, our sophisticated, moody green looked less like a library and more like Oscar the Grouch's skin. It was a swampy, depressing green. We thought, okay, no big deal. The second coat will fix it. It'll deepen the color. Wrong. The second coat just made it a more intense version of swamp monster green. And because our rolling technique was, let's say, inexperienced, the finish was patchy and streaky. It was a complete disaster. We stood back, covered in paint, looked at the streaky, sad, Smurf-colored walls and just silence. We slowly closed the door to that room and didn't open it again for a week. The room of shame. Bloopers Act III, the floating shelf fiasco. Okay, so painting was a bust. We decided to pivot to something with more structure, something that seemed impossible to mess up, installing a single floating shelf in the living room. It's one shelf. It looked so easy on Pinterest. We bought the kit, the drill, and one of those stud finders. The stud finder was our first problem. That little device is the biggest liar I have ever met. We'd run it across the wall, it would beep with confidence, we'd mark the spot, and then drill. Straight into empty drywall. We tried again. Beep, drill, drywall. After about 10 minutes, our pristine wall looked like it had been attacked by a very small, very angry woodpecker. We eventually gave up on the stud finder and decided to use heavy-duty drywall anchors. These can hold 50 pounds each, the package promised. We finally get the bracket on the wall. It's time for the moment of truth, the level. I held the level up to the bracket. The little bubble was so far to the right, it was practically in the next room. We adjusted, drilled new holes, patched the old ones. Finally, we got it close enough. Good enough for government work, which is a terrible motto for home renovation, by the way. We slid the beautiful wooden shelf onto the brackets and stood back beaming with pride. It looked okay, a little crooked if you stared at it, but it was up. We put a couple of books and a small plant on it. Victory was ours. We went to bed feeling like certified handymen. At 3 a.m., we were woken up by a sound that can only be described as a gunshot followed by a small avalanche. We ran into the living room to find the shelf, the books, and a pile of dirt and drywall all over the floor. The anchors had completely ripped out of the wall. The wall now had 2 giant gaping holes. Our beautiful shelf had a huge dent in it. We just stared at the wreckage and then at each other and just started laughing. It was either that or cry. Bloopers Act III, the Great Flooring Debacle. After our previous fails, we clearly thought the best course of action was to tackle an even bigger, more complicated project. We decided to replace the ugly, peeling laminate in our office. We watched about 20 hours of YouTube videos on how to install, quote, click-lock vinyl plank flooring. The name itself is a lie. It sounds so simple. Click, lock, done. The first 2 rows were great. We were flying. We were a well-oiled machine. Wow, I thought. We've finally found our calling. Then we got to the 3rd row. The planks just wouldn't click. They wouldn't lock. We'd get one side in and the other side would pop up. We'd hammer it with the little rubber mallet and a gap would appear somewhere else. It was like playing the world's most frustrating game of Tetris. We also discovered that our subfloor was about as level as a roller coaster. There were dips and hills we never knew existed, so our nice flat planks were creating these weird little ramps and valleys. Then came the doorways. Oh, the doorways. You have to make these weird, intricate cuts to get the plank to fit around the door jamb. Our attempts looked like we'd cut them with our teeth. Hours went by. The sun went down. We were kneeling on a hard floor, sweating, bickering over which end was the tongue and which end was the groove. The room was a disaster zone of sawdust, discarded planks, and shattered dreams. We managed to finish about half the room before we called it quits, completely defeated. To this day, the office has a half-finished floor, with the other half covered by a strategically placed area rug. We don't talk about it. The grand finale. A shocking conclusion. The final straw was a light fixture. We had this hideous 90s-era brass chandelier in the dining room. I was determined to replace it. I got this, I said, with a confidence I absolutely had not earned. I'll just turn off the power at the breaker box and it's just a few wires, red to red, black to black. I flipped the switch I thought was for the dining room. I got up on the ladder, unscrewed the old fixture, and saw the bundle of wires. I reached out to untwist one of the caps and zap. It wasn't a huge shock, but it was enough to make me yelp and nearly fall off the ladder. Every hair on my arm was standing straight up. There was a little pop and the faint smell of burnt ozone. I scrambled down that ladder so fast. In that moment, I had a vision of my entire house burning down because of my own hubris. That was it. That was the moment of surrender. We sat on the floor in the middle of our half-painted, hole-filled, semi-floored house and just waved the white flag. We were not DIYers. We were DIYs, did we think we could do this. We learned a very valuable, very expensive lesson. Some things are just better left to the professionals. There is no shame in calling an electrician. There is no shame in hiring a painter who actually knows how to tape a straight line. Our house isn't perfect, and our renovation journey has been less of a triumphant montage and more of a comedy of errors. But the stories we have, they're priceless. And the holes in the wall add character, right? So, if you're thinking about starting your own DIY journey, please learn from our mistakes. Or if you just want to watch us continue to make them, then you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to join the Viana Home family. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss whatever we decide to mess up next. Send help and snacks.